This is Chapter 5, but I need to let you know ahead of time that this was recorded in a classroom while a course was going on. There was also some construction going on in the background, so when you hear some knocking and maybe even some drilling, just try to tune that out and pay more attention to what's going on actually in the lecture. Chapter 5, Writing Your Paper, an Overview.
This is a basic visual layout of a paper. You have the introduction and then the thesis statement, the body, that's your square, and the conclusion. Notice that there is a second thesis statement here, and that thesis statement is reworded. It's the exact same content, but it's not the exact same wording. I'll leave that up there for just a minute for you to copy. So this introduction is an upside down triangle or a funnel that ends in the thesis statement. The thesis statement is the last sentence of your first paragraph. Then you have this square. It can also be a rectangle. That's the body. The reworded thesis statement, and then a right side up triangle for the conclusion. Trick question. How many paragraphs do you have to have? As many as you need. Okay? No set number. Next slide, the introduction. The introduction tells them what you're going to tell them. It should introduce. That's the point of it. That's why it's called an introduction. Okay, it should start broad and then narrow down to the thesis. That's why it's shaped like a funnel in that visual representation. It should start broad with some general statements, and then it should narrow all the way down to the thesis. It should provide a general overview of the ideas that you're going to discuss in the paper. It should give you an idea of what you're going to discuss in the paper. So the introduction tells them what you're going to tell them. It should introduce, it should start broad and then narrow down to the thesis, and it should provide a general overview of the ideas as they pertain to your thesis. The sentences following, or actually surrounding your thesis, are going to tell you how the paper is going to progress. Okay? How are you going to advance your argument? How are you going to tell us what you need to say? And surrounding includes the stuff that's above it in the introductory paragraph. It also includes the body. It essentially includes the conclusion because that's also around a thesis. The one at the end of your paper. If the introduction tells them what you're going to tell them, what does the body do? Take a guess. It tells them. It should expand and support the thesis statement. This is your argument. If your body is not strong enough, then your paper isn't worth putting a lot of effort into reading. The body should expand and support the thesis statement. Now we're going to camp out a little bit here in the body. It should provide the argument itself. We've already discussed the 3 items that you can use to support your thesis. What were they? They were specific examples, okay? Specific examples, and you had 3 types of that. You had real examples, imaginary examples, and analogies, okay? You also had, what was the second type? Expert testimony, and then the third type, statistics. And statistics had 2 parts. It was numerical and graphic, okay? And here we go. The body of the paper provides the support for the thesis presented in the introduction. They should develop the writing plan or outline. It should lead readers logically. Today we get to those 6 orders that we've been hinting at. Should logically lead them from one section to another without causing confusion. You do not want to confuse your readers. They'll put down your work as quickly as they can. So the body of the logically, and it does not cause confusion. A topic sentence is to a paragraph what a thesis is to a paper. A topic sentence is to a paragraph what a thesis is to a paper. With that in mind, what does a thesis do to the paper or for the paper? It gives the main point. It gives the main argument. It gives the focus. So the same way that a thesis statement gives the focus to the paper, the topic sentence also does that for the paragraph. Now, where is the thesis statement found in a paper? 2 places. Okay, specifically where in the introduction? The last sentence of the first paragraph. Where specifically in the conclusion is it? The first sentence of the last paragraph. Okay. Where's the topic sentence found? We'll get to that in a sec. Okay. Just like a thesis tells you what the paper is going to be about, a topic sentence tells you what the paragraph is going to be about. These are very helpful when you go to do your outline, particularly after the fact, because you should be able to just pull out the topic sentences to make your sentence outline, if that's what you choose to use. Yes, the topic sentence you'll find in the next slide, yes, is the first sentence of every paragraph. Okay, they're usually found at the beginning of the paragraphs. Usually. Most often. For this class, they should be. But sometimes you'll find them in the middle, sometimes you'll find them at the end, and sometimes they're just implied. Okay? Particularly when you're reading stories, like short stories and novels and things like that, you won't see a topic sentence. But it will be there. It will be implied. So they're usually found as the first sentence of every paragraph. It should connect the thesis to the paragraph content. Remember that everything in your paper must directly relate to your thesis, okay? The way to make sure that you are doing that is to include in your topic sentence part of your thesis. Refer back to it. And I'll expand on that a little bit more when we get to transitions. So if you have, think for a minute, if you have 7 paragraphs, how many thesis statements are you going to have? 2. How many topic sentences are you going to have? 5. Okay? Okay. The central idea of every paragraph must be clear enough to lead your readers easily from one to another. You don't want to jump around. You want to make sure that it falls into one of the 6 orders. Transitions. Transitions are going to be key to help give you the flow that you need. They will reduce the choppiness. So, with that in mind, that transitions are important to tie your paragraphs together, to create flow, what do we need to do? To find out what transitions are. Go figure. Transitions give you logical connections. You see this word logical, 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 logical come up many times. Hopefully it'll stick one of these times. Way for readers to understand your thoughts and to go through your paper with you is to use these transitions. Transitions are words, phrases that show logical connections. They reduce choppiness and they increase flow. They better the flow. If you see me write choppy on the side of your paper, you'll know, oops, I need to add a transition here, or I need to add multiple transitions here. like now that we're hearing this. In addition to the landscaping being conducted during class, they interrupt our classes by hammering on the pipes. Okay? In addition to, what would my thesis probably be? Something about, okay, yeah, the science tech tends to do things during class hours that are disrupting. Transition is what makes your paper stick together. If this wall comes down, we're in trouble. Okay? It's what makes your paper stick together. Okay? It's the glue of the paper, or it's the double stuff filling in the Oreo cookie. Okay? How many of you have seen a child eat an Oreo cookie? Okay? What do they do first? Pull it apart. They twist the cookie, they pull it apart. What do they eat? The cream, and then what do they do? Stick it back together and put it in the package, right? Ew, gross. Okay? They like the Oreo cookie filling. And I like to see your Oreo cookie filling. I like to see your transitions. Okay? I like to have those together. Okay? Also, do kids prefer the Oreo cookie or the double stuffed cookie? The double stuff, why? It's thicker. It's got more cream. I want to see multiple word transitions instead of single word transitions. Okay. What are some examples of transitions? There are 6 easy ones that kind of put together in a rhyme. And or nor yet but for. Okay. And or nor yet but for. I'm not going to ask you this on a test. But know what they are. And or nor yet but for. You also have however and therefore. Next, finally, first. There is not a word as firstly. There is not really a word as secondly. We just use it. Okay? Great. Samantha. Which is actually a word that works with phrases. It's not a transition. Yeah, it's a clause marker. Good question, though. What do you not do with these words? Start sentences with them. Do not start sentences with these words. You should not start a sentence with however. You can put it as like the third word. I do, comma, however, comma, something. But overall, you want to avoid getting in the practice of it. You could say something like, however much I like that, comma, I choose not to eat it. Right. But it's a better idea to just say that's not a word I can use. Yeah, Katie? We're getting to that, yes. Yeah, you haven't missed it yet. Okay, on these one-word transitions? Other forms of transitions, they are not limited to single words or phrases. Remember that I said that I want the double stuff, I want the bigger transitions? Often or even usually a transition is longer than just one word. It makes more sense to your readers and they're able to focus on a thought longer. Topic sentences and transitions. This is what Katie was getting at. Often a topic sentence serves as both a transition and as the central idea of the paragraph. Okay, topic sentence is still its topic sentence, but it has part of it, maybe even half of it, that works as a transition. In addition to Big Bird as a child's favorite Sesame Street character, Snuffleupagus is a second. Okay, how much of that was my transition? Most of it was a transition. Okay, everything before the comma. In addition to all the tools that they have brought in, they added a wrench. Okay, in addition to all the tools they brought in, that's my transition. This is what I want for your papers. This is the ideal. Now sometimes using this for every single paragraph, particularly if your paragraphs are smaller, it gets really overdone. So I'm not saying that every one of your paragraphs has to have a topic sentence that is a transition to. But if you're not used to that, start thinking more along those lines. Good? Okay. The 6 orders for papers. Yay! You will need to memorize these because we will use these from chapter 6 through chapter, I think it's 14 or something like that. Okay? The first of these is chronological. Chronological. What kind of order is chronological? What based? Time. It's time-based order. If I'm discussing wars that are fought on American soil, which is the likely one that I would use first? Okay, the French and Indian War. Okay. Then I would go to the American Revolution. Then I would go to the... Oh, I forgot about the War of 1812. Yeah, that was before the American Civil War. And then we can go on, I mean, part of World War II was fought on American soil, etc., etc. But that's chronological. Okay. So that's chronological. It is time-based order. The second one is spatial. And spatial sounds like the word space. It's location-based order. If I were to explain how people are sitting in this class, okay, then I'd probably start over here with Mary, and then go to Sebastian, and then move on. When I get over here to Davis, which way would I go? Okay, I'd go back. I'd go back to Jessica, and then I'd move on this way, and then go over here till I hit Arudma, and then I go back to David. Okay, so or I might start at Katie, or I might start at David and go this way. But the point is, I do it in a logical way. I do it based on where it is location. If I talk about the different gold rushes, I could either move east to west or west to east. Might I even go south to north or north to south. The third one is numerical. It's order of importance or importance-based. You want to make sure that you do not confuse chronological with numerical. If I'm talking about those people who had the most influence in my life, then I might start with my aunt. She influenced me this much. And then my grandfather influenced me more than my aunt. Then my mom and dad influenced me the most out of those three. Okay? Does that make sense? I can start with the least and go to the most, or I can start with the most and go to the least. But they progress in importance. Okay, the fourth one is cause and effect. Now, if I put my hand on a curling iron that has been heated, what's going to happen? You're going to burn yourself, okay? We understand cause and effect. We've been doing this since we were little. If I drop this, it falls. You can either start with the effects and move to the causes, or you can start with the causes and move to the effects. But either way, it's cause and effect order. You don't go cause, effect, 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 cause. Okay. Then number 5 is compare, contrast. That tells what? The similarities and the differences. Compare, contrast. All you need to know for right now about compare, contrast order is that there are 3 types of compare, contrast order that you'll learn later. Okay. So there are 3 types of compare, contrast order. And finally, there's a catch-all category. There's logical. It just makes sense this way. This is not one that I want you to use because you'll be using the rest of them. Okay. But sometimes it is, it's just like, I don't know, it just fits this way best. So there are your 6 orders. What are you going to do with these? Memorize them. What 3 things did a thesis statement have to be? An opinion, debatable, and a complete sentence. Guess what? A paragraph has to be 3 things. Unified, coherent, and complete. Unified, coherent, and complete. Unified, it has to develop a single idea. There are really 4 times that you change paragraphs. 3 of them are most often found when you're writing stories. One is when you change speakers. A second is when you change location. And a third is when you change time. The 4th one is when you change topic. When you move on to a different point. So change speaker, change location, change time, and change topic. Thus, a paragraph has to be unified. It focuses on one idea. And what is that idea? It's the topic sentence. It must also be coherent. It has to be stuck together. Anybody take chemistry? Okay. Have you heard the term cohesion? Okay. Or it coheres. It sticks to itself. Adhere means it sticks to something else. Cohere is it sticks to itself. Okay. So it's coherent. It's stuck together. You can also use transitions within a paragraph to stick your ideas together. It doesn't have to just be between paragraphs. You don't want your paper to say, here's my idea. Here's an idea. Here's an idea. Here's an idea. You want to pull it all together. And it also needs to be complete. You need to have enough stuff in there to make it readable. You don't want to leave your readers saying, oh, they missed something. It needs to be full enough. Good? Okay, paragraph development. You have to use enough things. This is the complete part of it. You have to use enough stuff to support your topic sentence. Have to use enough stuff in it to support your topic sentence. Specific examples, expert testimony, statistics, that all falls under here. Facts, details, examples, quotations of authorities, or reasons. If you do not develop it well enough, you cause your reader to be confused. You didn't finish your thought. Does anybody have friends who don't finish their sentences? Or parents who don't finish their sentences? And you're not perfectly sure what's going on? So you want to make sure to give your paragraph everything that it needs. Unified, coherent, complete. Paragraph needs to be unified, coherent, complete. How do you make it complete? You give it enough padding. Think about it as a skeleton. Your outline is a skeleton, or your topic sentences are skeletons, and you want to put meat on the bones. Some people like more meat than others. Some people have more meat than others. Give it enough meat. Although some papers I need to put on a diet. How long should your paragraphs be? What's the minimum length? 2 sentences. The very minimum length is 2 sentences. Okay. Those of you who have that written on your paper should memorize that. Okay. But here's a little quip for you to remember. Paragraph length can be equated to the length of a lady's skirt. It should be long enough to cover the subject, but short enough to keep it interesting. Okay? Now, if I have offended you by this comment, I apologize, but I bet you'll remember it. Okay? Now, some people's paragraphs are going to be really short. Some paragraphs are going to be really long. You need to be able to cover it. Give it enough material to cover what needs to be covered, but don't give me extra stuff that I don't need. Okay, the length of a paragraph is partially determined by the topic sentence. The more stuff you have in your topic sentence to cover, the more stuff you got to put in that paragraph. And you have to decide how much material you need to develop it properly. I will help you. I'll help you as best I can by putting little things like I need more here, or you could take out 6 of these 29 points. 3 things that a paragraph has to be are unified, coherent, and complete. Every time you write, you need to make sure that the material is relative to your thesis and as concise as possible. Don't give me too much. And if you can say it in 16 words, why give me 50? So make sure that everything relates to your point and that you say it in as few words as you can. Now that doesn't mean that I want all sentences to be 3 words. Okay? You do need to vary your sentence length. But we'll talk about things like clause cutting and repetition of meaning and things like that we'll be able to cut out. I think that's chapter 22, 21 or 22. Don't pad your writing. Don't give me stuff that I don't need. Don't give me extra fluff. I don't like it. And usually instead of making your paper better, it worsens your paper. Makes it harder to read. It may add length, but it adds no quality. Often it's more detrimental. That does not mean you can turn in for me a 2-page paper. You still have to have the length, but it needs to be quality. You might need to add in another point. Remember, we're not dealing with 3-point essays anymore. Okay, we spent a long time on the body, but let's get back to the introduction real fast. What does the introduction do? It tells them what you're going to tell them. The body tells them. So what's the conclusion going to do? Tell them what you told them. Okay. If you want to think about it, you're preparing them, then you're telling them, then you're reviewing. You're preparing, you're teaching or telling, and then you're reviewing. If you'll notice the structure of my lectures, I tend to have some of that in there. How many times did we talk about getting to those 6 orders? Countless, right? And then I taught you what the 6 orders were today, and guess what we're going to do? Review them. What were they? They were chronological, which is time-based order. Second one is spatial, which is location-based. Then we had numerical, that is order of importance. Then the 4th one, cause and effect. 5th one, compare, contrast. And 6th one is logical. Okay? So at the conclusion, you tell them what you've told them. Think about this as the closing the book. Okay? How many of you, when you were younger, or maybe even now, when you're done with the book, you're like, I'm done. Okay? Or some of you, when you take the SAT, you're like, okay, I am finished. Okay? That should have, your conclusion should have that same feel. I need to make sure that I don't get to the end of the page and flip it expecting more. You're closing the door on the evening. Some people don't quite get that that's the end. But if you got a salesperson who comes to the door and you close the door, what does that say to them? Bye. everything is final. Everything is done. It's concluded. There is no more that you need to say. It's not that there's not any more that you could say. It's that there's not any more that you need to say. Your conclusion realistically could be the smallest part of your paper. Sometimes the introduction is, but your conclusion could be. What should the conclusion do? It should remind your readers what you've told them. Okay? It should remind them what they were supposed to get out of the piece. If you missed it in the introduction, and then you missed it in that whole body that I wrote, here's one more chance for you to get it. And it should pull together everything that you've said. It should pull together everything you've said in your topic sentences. What do you remember? Your conclusion should be brief. You've already said everything you wanted to say in the paper. You're just highlighting the main points. It's your way of wrapping everything up and presenting it to the reader. How many of you think that you have not eaten dinner unless you had dessert? Or would like to say that you haven't eaten dinner until you've had dessert? How many of you think that it's not a gift unless it has bows on the package? Okay. Some people have to have that ribbon on the package, or it's like, well, it's just a wrapped box. It's not a present unless it has a bow on it. Okay, so how can you conclude? How many orders were there? 6. How many ways to conclude are there? Good guess. Okay. Remind your readers of the main ideas. Okay, go back over the highlights. Go back over the big ideas. And you can use more than one of these ways to conclude. You need to not use all 6. By the way, you can only use one of those orders in a whole paper. Just one. But with the ways to conclude, you can use more than one. The second is to tell a story, an anecdote. What's an antidote? Okay, it's something that counteracts poison. I'd really rather not think of your papers as poison. Okay? This is an anecdote. It's a short story. Usually it's historical. And it gives it that final touch. Make sure that it relates to your paper, though. Don't just give me a little story because it was a good little story. Then you also might try to restate your thesis. If that's all you do, it's not enough. You can do this in light of others. Okay? You can do it in conjunction with other methods. Okay. You can reveal the significance of what you said. Tell them why you said this to them. Apply it to them. How many of you need an application to what you're doing? Why do I have to learn this? All right. You might make a prediction, reveal the future. Be careful, though. You don't want to open up a can of worms at the end of a paper. You want to make sure that you don't leave your reader guessing in the future. You might mention a quote or ask a question. Questions are very, very, very difficult to use at the end of papers. Because ideally, you're not supposed to use rhetorical questions. It puts your reader on the defense. And at the same time, you should not leave them with a new paper to write. We're not going for sequels here. Be very careful about asking a question. Quotes are extremely effective, or can be extremely effective. Don't let your reader remain questioning what you're saying. Don't leave them turning a page at the bottom and looking for more of your paper. You have no